this working? Yeah. Thanks so much, Johanna. I just want to say I've been a participant for the whole day and I have learned a tremendous amount of tools that, and I was not kidding when I said to Johanna 10 minutes ago, I want to change the presentation. But of course, that's too late, so I'm going to improvise a little bit. And with that improvisation, I actually, during the coffee break, made the decision to choose 2 individuals that I would like me to help role play, just to point out some live examples that I'm sure all of us can relate to. So, Niels, if we start with you first, come up onto the stage. Oh. Now, let's pretend that we're sitting on an aeroplane, okay? And Niels is sitting in business. There, Niels, I think it's better now. Niels is sitting in business class. And Niels is from Japan. So Niels is has a very obliging character, one can say. And I happened to be working that morning, serving the needs of the business passengers. And perhaps I had a really bad morning. Or maybe I'm just have a very different way of communicating. But just let me give you an example of what I saw with my own eyes that absolutely disgusted me that day that I was travelling back from Brussels to Sweden. So I have my little dolly cart, and I'm just checking that everyone's got their seat belts on, checking, looking around, and then I see Niels doing this. Excuse me, sir. What are you doing? Now, this poor guy is absolutely horrified because this is in front of a group of passengers on an airline. Put your shoes on, please. Now, you can imagine for the rest of us sitting there, close to this individual, the embarrassment that we went through, the humiliation that we felt for this poor guy. So he does the right thing according perhaps to the Japanese culture, and he puts his shoes back on. So I continue put your shoes back on. So I continue my service with the drinks now, with the coffee. And I get up to this group of Japanese again. What are you drinking? Drink, drink, what are you drinking? Drink, drink! Now by this stage, my blood is absolutely boiling. And I feel I'm going to totally lose it. And I just tried to contain myself and say, Lisa, this guy, maybe he's had a really shit morning. Maybe he broke up with someone, I don't know. But, I was just, strapping the seatbelt really tight because I thought, I don't want to get out of that seat and thump him to death. So again, this poor Japanese guy, again. Water, yes, water. Goes off again. Thank you, Niels. A great interpretation. I want to highlight there. Before we heard the speakers today talk about interaction, the initial meeting. Now tell me, ladies and gentlemen, how do you think that individual, Niels, you playing that role, how would you feel if that actually happened to you in reality? Uncomfortable. Would you go back home and actually do anything about it? Would you share that experience with others?
I think so, and not fly on that airline again.
Not fly with that airline again, yeah. How do you think the rest of us that we were kind of participators on an external level, how do you think we actually felt? I was sitting there and I thought, you are from Scandinavia. You are working on Scandinavian airlines. What perception are you giving this individual from another country about Scandinavian people? I mean, what I'm trying to get to is you've got to understand the implications if you are going to do, pardon the expression, shit like that. Because it is deadly. And what Niels could have done, I don't know if this Japanese gentleman did that, Niels could have easily then gone onto his social media and in fact killed the airline. And I'll come back to social media very, very shortly. I want to give another example, just to explain a bit of history about myself. I come from Australia. I grew up in an industry which is very, very obsessed with customer service, especially when I was growing up. My first experience of really appreciating fantastic service, in fact, when I was a small child. I was 10 and we went into a local giftware shop, and one of the women working in the shop gave such passion to every single customer that walked in there. When she was wrapping people's presents, she put love into that package and would hand that over. And I remember being entranced by this woman and actually saying to my mother, why does she do that? And my mum couldn't give me a good answer. My mum said, oh, maybe she just likes working here. But you know, that was something that was entrenched in me from a very young age. And then over time, I started to work in the retail industry and I started to get very, very obsessed with the whole service factor. So just one more example of what I've experienced in particular, and it's not to point out a country, but it is perhaps to point out something with the culture that we need to ask ourselves, why does that happen? So I had another, well, kind of semi-volunteer, Josephine. We're now going to imagine a typical retail scenario. I am the sales assistant, and I just got in lots of stock. So I've got a very, very busy day today, customers. Don't you dare interrupt me, because I need to unpack my boxes. That is why I'm here. That is my goal. That's why we've opened the shop. Don't you dare come near me. Pretend they're jumpers.
Excuse me, are you busy?
No.
Could I look at some jumpers maybe?
Yeah, okay, which ones?
I don't really want the jumpers now.
Okay, she doesn't really say that. But what I want to highlight, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, when did a goddamn box we stock become king? Is this king paying your salaries? Please, can somebody answer? I mean, what happened to bloody service? What happened to us having this pleasure principle when somebody comes into our environment? Now, let's forget that it's a shop. It can be the library. It can be a cafe. It can be an airline. It can be the office in which you work in. It can be the local police station. I had a wonderful example there. I needed to get some sign forms from the police. And you know, police stations can be quite intimidating. So I walked in and I saw, I think you have an expression in Swedish, sud shedding, is that right? Sour bitch, something like that. Okay, so I know I'm being filmed here, but what the hell? So I see this sud shedding and I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be interesting. So I walk up and I kind of say to her in my broken Swedish, I need some assistance, I have this situation. And I felt that as I was communicating to her, she was putting up this defensive wall. And then I actually stopped in the middle of my request and I said, you know what? I'm actually going to go into English now because I can see that we're having problems. And she said, no. And I was like, no, we're definitely, you know, there is no communication here between us. Well, in the end, she spoke English for my sake, but she decided very clearly the request that I wanted, that there was no way in hell it was going to happen. Now, what happened is the booth next to me, there was an American guy also needing assistance. And when he saw the interaction I had with this woman, he looked at me and we looked at each other and we burst out laughing. And all the people that worked behind that police station thought we were loonies. And they were like thinking, what the hell is funny here? And we just, we had this like unspoken understanding. Now, the story is, I went back and I told all of my friends, even just acquaintances, about the disgusting service that I received at the police station. Now, some of you might be thinking, but did you really think you were going to get good customer service? When did you think you were going to be the king? Now, can I ask, for some of you that don't work, or perhaps you might think, well, I don't have really a customer that is a king. Can some of you share with me? I met a filmmaker before that was sitting next to me. Where are you, the film? Yeah. I actually asked him during the session, who are your customers? And you actually said that you've started to give it thought, that you actually do have customers, because your customers actually are the people that are viewing your films. So then when I think about library environments, I can tell you, my mother in Australia, she started to share with me some stories about libraries in Australia, that now they are, public spaces, and they actually have a lot of services for the ageing population. And to me, when I compare libraries back when I was a little girl, I mean, my God, it's come such a long way. So there is a customer king philosophy that you can still apply to your industries, irrespective of what that industry is. And I really hope that you can take that away today. I have 7 key principles that I wanted to go through. Yeah. So, we've said here, customer king, it's an old age business mantra. So it was about serving your customer in the best possible way that you knew how in order to retain them. And we'd forgotten, I believe, a little bit about that over the years, but it's making a comeback, ladies and gentlemen. And the reason it's making a comeback has very much got to do with the way that we live today, with those little things called smartphones, mobile phones, your control stick to the world, to everything that's happening around you. That's impacting greatly in this industry. It's a blessing, and it can also be, for us as service providers, a very vulnerable position to be in, because it can be used as a weapon, which I kind of was hinting towards before, whether Niels wanted to go back onto his Twitter account or Facebook and share that horrifying experience with all your friends. Oh, there we are. So, the words of Paul Valéry. Paul Valéry is a French poet, lived many, many, many centuries ago. And he basically predicted that the future isn't what it used to be. And that really is what we need to be thinking about. And it's not, ladies and gentlemen. Today it is about these little phones and the remote control of life. But what's it going to be in 3 years? What's going to impact, again, the customer king philosophy? We don't really know yet. We can try to predict, but we can't predict probably and have that 90% clarity like we used to in the past with what is happening in the world. And why? Because we get to a new generation of customers called Generation Cs. And all of you sitting here possess some of those qualities. I just want to throw out to the audience, what do you think are some of the attributes of a Generation C? And it starts, to give you a hint, starts with the letter C. I've said one of them. Communicate, yep, communication. Collaboration. Consumption, yeah, absolutely, doing that. Creative. Co-create, yes. Customization, and one more very specific one, which I was talking about before. Change and control. I want to control my life in every way possible. That's a very... This one? Oh, sorry. Okay. I'll try to multi-skill here. So, connected, collaborate, co-create, very much about communities and about a conscience. So, we're all about the change, us new Generation C consumers. Oh. So, point one, customers will have the power to choose like never before. I'm working on a project right now in Denmark with a restaurant operator who wants to totally redo their restaurant. And I was under the assumption he would use a local Danish architectural firm. But instead, he's using a Turkish architectural firm. And I found that absolutely fascinating first. And then I said to him, but, yeah, probably asked a very silly question, but why aren't you just using the local guy? And he said, yeah, because I know this guy already from Turkey, I know the work that he does, and we can communicate any time of the day, and we Skype each other, and we send each other images through our smartphones, and it's no issue at all. That was a wake-up call to me, because that meant, in my world, you cannot be sitting on your laurels and thinking, I have a unique project, I have a unique idea, I have a brilliant service, nobody can touch me. Because the world today is so accessible for every single one of us. So that is point number one, about customers and having the power to choose. Point number two, brands need to forge deeper emotional connections with their customers. It's no longer about the transaction, ladies and gentlemen. It's about really trying to develop a relationship with your customer, creating the loyalty factor, creating a community around what they're purchasing, whether it's a service or whether it's a tangible product. So it's no longer about the cash till opening and putting in another 200 kroner. It's a very different world in which we live in today, the emotional connections. And I'll give you some examples of that as we go along. Stores in particular, and I also want to extend that to service providers, really have to rethink their roles in the future. The example I gave you of a box, I'm not over-exaggerating here and I'm not over-dramatising. That situation, me competing with a box, has happened on so many occasions that I had to share it today because I just thought it was absolutely ludicrous. That kind of behaviour of the assistant that you meet in a shop comes from the top. If management from the top, or you as managers, are not living, breathing, walk the talk yourselves, there is no way you can push that philosophy down to the person on the floor, which is so important to that final consumer. So you yourselves have a responsibility for the way that that person is acting. And sometimes, I mean, I didn't walk out of that shop and go onto Facebook, but I could imagine someone that's very attached to their Facebook and want to share that could have destroyed and boycotted that business immediately. It's about stories now that we need to create with our customers being the people that want to buy our services and our goods. In the stores of tomorrow, buying will be outmoded as a sterile activity, and that is happening right now. A lot of us probably, well, I'm making an assumption here, I can say that I do most of my weekly grocery shopping now online. I don't necessarily want to invest an hour anymore in an IKEA supermarket on a Friday afternoon. That I can do very easily in my kitchen, sitting down with a nice cup of coffee. It's the same when we're buying normal goods and services where we perhaps don't need to have that interaction. So what that means is now we need to create an art of shopping for services, and I'm going to keep throwing out that word because this is really relevant for all of you in this room, and for products. So forget storytelling. A lot of times I see companies put announcements out there on Facebook, we're great at this, we're awesome at that, we're fantastic. But why actually not let the consumers do the storytelling and the story creation along with you, and then get them to post their stories? I had that situation just now in Brussels. I went to a hairdresser, I had a great experience, and then they actually said, you know, Lisa, we've got a site, can you have a look at it, and it would be nice if perhaps you could give us some feedback. And I said, well, I can give it to you directly now. And they said, yeah, but we'd also like to have it digitally, so we can also share that with our customers. And that's happening more and more and more. It's about the story doing that you do together in collaboration. This is a great place that I believe does fantastic story doing. I live in Malmö. I have 2 children that are 10 and 11 years old. And they used to attend this fantastic landmark in Malmö, Mazzetti House. And Mazzetti used to be, well, still is a very famous landmark, but it used to be an old chocolate factory that was converted to a destination where storytelling and story doing is being created all the time by small children right up to adults to an aging population. And this is great, and this is what I encourage you as designers to be thinking about when you are out there developing and working on your ideas and your businesses. So point number 4, and I talked about this before, about participation. It's no longer me and him. It's about an us situation together. And an example of that is Magnum. You can go into a Magnum shop and create your own Magnum. Now, there's a lot of these examples actually popping up all over Sweden. The latest trends is these yogurt bars. I don't know if a lot of you know these yogurt bars popping up. You go in and you create your own yogurt that you want to indulge in. And if you're a young teenager like my kids, they're so proud of what they're creating that they've been actively participating in that creation, and then they're posting that automatically on Instagram. I mean, extremely smart. The message is out there in a matter of seconds. All their friends are looking at that, and on the side, that yogi bar operator is building up this community of people that love their product. And this is happening more and more and more. And it's moving away from the traditional sense of, sorry, we've only got 4 ice cream flavors you can choose from, to let your mind run free. If you want to mix in berry with vanilla, with chocolate, with Coke, go for it, dear customer. It's about the engagement and involvement. It's no longer about discounting to bring people in and the transaction. So if you engage people in the real world in a different way, it finds a new meaning of space. And we're seeing this again in a shop like this. This is a shop in Canada, and they sell a lot of yoga clothing. And it's a lifestyle. I've researched this quite a lot, and a lot of their customers live very spiritual lives, that they follow a certain type of mantra. And what they have in this shop on a regular basis are yoga classes. For those of you that are going to have or are working on projects that are coming up, where you need to be thinking about the interaction, the participation, the community, I mean, these are some really good reference examples you can start to look at to see how you bring a group of people together that have the same interest and start to build this type of community. So point 5, it's about reinventing the convenience factor. And today, convenience very much is all about accessibility to something and the speed of something. And there's so many apps today that are available to us all that you can be using. I mean, I know a lot of my friends, I don't have it here, but they're using the Espresso House app, where they're basically ordering their lattes, they're going in with that app, they are then entitled to lots of other treats that us non-app people are entitled to. But this is really great if you are app designers and you have a project coming up which is about speed and getting something in a matter of seconds. Thinking very much about the convenience. Redefining loyalty. I had a very strange experience yesterday in a small shopping centre in Malmö. It was one of these chemists. And when I was paying for my things, the woman behind the counter asked, are you a member? And I said, a member of what? A loyalty club member. I said, no. That was the end of the conversation. I kind of reflected and I thought, that's the weirdest thing that I've been asked. If you're going to invest in loyalty with your customers, please do it in the right way. Find out what it is that is actually going to make them loyal to your product or to your service. Instead of just applying a blanket approach and giving out another plastic card and someone saying behind the counter, oh, you get another 10% off. I mean, today when somebody says, do you want to be a member? I almost start to convulse because I'm like, if I get one more loyalty card, I'm absolutely going to freak out. So be very careful in this area. There's a lot of different ways that you can, and I like to use the word play with loyalty. This is one example here, and it's a very old-fashioned example. It's from a jean retailer called Nudie Jeans, and they are in Gothenburg and in London. And Nudie Jeans have a great philosophy. If you buy a pair of jeans from these guys, and if you break the little studded button or the zip, something's wrong with the zip, or you get a cut here or whatever, a pocket comes loose, you go back to the shop and they will repair it on the spot, if they can, totally for free. If you can't get to the shop, they will actually send out a repair kit to your home with very clear instructions on how to repair it. Now, to me, that really defines very strongly what a nice loyalty. 2 minutes or 2 minutes, really? I've got a different clock here. Okay, I need to now speed along. Okay, so point 7, which is my last point. Really looking at the value proposition. So people no longer just want things. We seek the meanings in things, ladies and gentlemen. An example here, and I'm going to finish with this example. And it's Starbucks. We all know Starbucks. Love them or hate them, they're a very popular brand. They are almost everywhere across the world. And they are now adopting a new philosophy with a new brand that they want to release in the marketplace. The Starbucks Roastery for Café Aficionados. So for those of us who love coffee. So I have a little movie. So in order to end, and I'm going to steal this guy's line, this is the next generation of the customer is king philosophy. So what? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I do have to ask a question, especially sort of in the context of values. I find that we are at a sort of shift from the sort of ethical greenwashing people talk about, for instance, or that you have a little department in your company that is in charge of corporate social responsibility, for instance, or something like that. But I read a lot in the business papers that we are shifting into a sort of values first or values central mode of doing business. Do you agree, and could you reflect a little bit on this?
I think I don't think we're there at all. I work with a lot of different customers, and it saddens me to say I don't see that shift happening. Not yet, not yet. I think basically shit needs to hit the fan first before people react. You know, it's a little bit like that. You know, we drink till we get drunk, and then we feel terrible the day, and then we're like, I'm never drinking again. If we put it into a corporate philosophy, I think that sometimes business might have to go in the totally wrong direction till then someone sits up in the organisation and says, we're doing something wrong. We actually find that this is the area that is really suffering. And it's a really fine line, because sometimes what I find when I'm speaking to high management, now I'm having conversations with a very famous hotel chain in Malmö. And I was reading a lot of comments about their service on Facebook. And what scared me is that the manager was answering with the same reply.
Like copy-pasting the...
Yeah, you know, and I actually met him and had a coffee with him the other day, and I was, again, I put that seatbelt on, but I just thought, why are you doing that to your customers? How can you think that you can maintain those customers or really give them a feeling of authenticity if you're copying and pasting your answers? So unfortunately, Johanna, today it's not happening, but I think all of us in this room can start today by going back to our workplaces and starting the process to happen. And it could take several years to get there, but I believe that it is the potential to start.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lisa Remnelid.
Thank you.